We just talked about this walk we did yesterday from Logan Airport to Cambridge. A 10-hour walk together with my friend Ian Gray. We kneeled down at a water puddle and studied it very closely and sort of imagined that it was a big lake and that we were going to build a house by that lake, and then we started sort of building a civilization around this water puddle. Ian had a great idea to make a movie theater. We came up with the concept of a sail in cinema. The movie we came up with is about a woman. It's sort of a boy meets girl type movie. It's a straight, very efficient narrative.
It's a contact mic building workshop.
So the steps are you want to make sure that your iron is tinned and cleaned off, and then you put a little bit of solder on each cable, which is called tinning cables, and then you twist them together like we talked about, and just through trial and error put a blob of solder on that connection. And it'll take a few tries, and basically just try to put some solder on the iron and touch it to that connection, and then you can sort of manipulate it.
Fireflies are something that we've all loved as kids, right? Catching them in the backyard, putting them in a jar and watching them close.
Let's listen to how sound is working in this piece. And you know, there's like the main story, and then there's these other things that are the helpers and the metaphors, if you will, of people.
Yeah, hold on for a sec.
Yeah.
Dennis is interesting. Dennis is making an assertion. Are you still making this assertion?
If you're not, you should.
That sound in itself is a metaphor.
Yeah.
Did you guys? Oh, you got that. Good. Okay.
That's all fireflies do, flash. But what interests Steve Strogatz?
We are going to fuse in a moment.
Blend into one with scent particles.
Shrink and wrap ourselves in warming foil.
Illumination and scratch. Swim and latch onto each letter of our alphabet soup.
Sound piece that's playing is sort of a mock radio show. A lot of these elements are actually things from my family. So it's sort of that was sort of the image in my head.
Listen to all the cooking steam in the world that is at this very moment evaporating.
Sonic ethnography. Ethnography is ethnos, like ethnic, and graphy, like writing down of people. So what happens when we think about the documentation or the writing of a people's way of life in sound rather than in text?
So he's constructed a recording which includes, you know, multiple layers. So he's put microphones at ground level and microphones up at tree level, and it relates to a concept of the clue we have that he translates as lift up over sounding, and so to someone who's from this place, maybe his idea is that in listening to this recording, they would be able to experience their kind of way of navigating through the rainforest through sound.
You don't want to make like a super solid contact.
Again, if you're finding your sound for the first time, I noticed that you're going to go like this, right now, and you go dirty. Get excited. That's cool. So really think about some space. So think about.
It goes in there. We're not using, you know, swapping the sound.
There's no.
What did you do tonight? Played the cell phone. It was my instrument.
Have you ever done that before?
No. It's very constricting though, because it has all these preset rhythms to it, so it's hard to kind of, but it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge, creating different dynamics and rhythms and stuff like that. So.
Part of this was, after you've sung and I clapped, I don't know if you remember this, you should do something different with your instrument that you were doing. And I really listen like as if you're playing. So I'm not playing and I'm standing here and I hear just, it's like I'm doing it. And maybe I'm like dancing a little bit inside to what that is. So that at some point when I come back in, I'm still really engaged.
I'm so glad you are here. I want to tell you a story. 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 Campfire. A story. Story. A story. Story. A story. Campfire. Story about two puppets I made.
Yell out some cities. What do we got?
Kansas City.
Texas.
Providence! Providence!
DC!
Brooklyn.
Azerbaijan!
Seattle. Seattle.
Uganda.
Anne and I did a workshop today and yesterday, and about 30 of you agreed to participate, and it was amazing. Yeah. It was called 1031, and the idea was that we would take 10 sounds that were about a minute in length a piece, and people would have 30 minutes to make a 1-minute piece, using a piece of each of those sounds.
Yeah, we cheated a little bit just because, thanks. We cheated a little bit because it was just going to be 10 sounds, but then we realized some of the SFX, was only like 3 seconds, so we kind of overwhelmed people a little bit.
Got the money. Take it easy. You got the money. You got the money. You got the money. You got the money.
And so what I wanted to do was to try and get people to interview each other and record the stories that they make up about each other on the subway, when they're walking down the street, when they're taking the bus, etc. So we tried to do that.
So if I died right now, if somehow I had a heart attack or I got hit by a car, what would everyone around think about me just based on my belongings? What's in my purse? Like I have a kazoo in my purse. Who is this person? Like my journal. God help me. This is like decide who I am based on this, but there are we're like all made up of these like little random artifacts.
So the idea of the Lady O Slumber Party was to take games that you maybe did or did not do when you were a teenager, like
Ask another girl for her number right in front of my face, and now I don't want to see him anyway, so but it's okay, I don't really care about him. I have crushes on lots of other people and that's what you're supposed to do when you are here at Wesley University.
we had a thing called U-Teen, and it was recording advice and messages to your 13-year-old self.
What would I tell him to read? Oh, I would tell him to, actually I would tell him to start reading poetry, because I didn't start reading poems until I was in high school. So, and I would tell him to start reading Emily Dickinson, and I would tell him to read that one in particular that's my favorite, which is The Brain is Wider Than the Sky, because it's true, and it makes you realize, like, wow, people think like me. Like even people who were writing during the Civil War and Reconstruction think like me.
So if you didn't see it, it was a table out there, and it had about 6 of these cassette recorders, and they were coming and going at random times. People were borrowing them, going around Harvard Square, recording stuff either that had to do with Megapolis or just stuff on the street.
So I think that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
I mean, for me, thank you.